Hi, welcome to the Chad Bozarth Show. Thanks for listening. Okay, you guys, we are recording. This has already messed up my system and my vibe a little bit because normally I try to record as soon as people get on the call and email. Kyle and I and Chris have already been talking for a couple minutes before you got on.
Make it sound like late. We're just early.
We're just early. So I set my alarm because I'm feeling really nostalgic. Actually, me and Kyle are two of our daughters are in vacation Bible school together,
Like right now.
like right now. And so I feel nostalgic about that because like when you're kids, I'm having trouble talking this morning. When your kids are friends, when your friends' kids are friends. What am I trying to say?
Yeah, when your friends' children are friends with your children, right? And is that it?
That was the longest winded way of saying that.
Yeah, my brother makes fun of me because he tells me that I'm like the worst storyteller that he knows. And I think there's a lot of truth to that because sometimes I'll tell a story and I'll have to explain that it's over.
And there's always that awkward pause where everyone's just like, okay, well, I guess we just move on with our lives now.
So this is a fun experiment because we've already done interviews, all of us, but now we're all together. And I thought for Father's Day, since Father's Day is coming up, and since we are all such good fathers, I thought we should do a something about fatherhood at 40. I'm laughing because I say we're good fathers and we are, but this morning started off with me feeling like I wasn't doing a good job being a father. And so I'm like, oh, yes, this would definitely happen on a day that we're going to do a podcast about being fathers. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have a notepad here and a pen because I'm just here to take notes.
Take notes from who?
You guys.
So,
Well,
what direction are we going in with this thing? Are we gonna go straight to the hard topics like
I
raising
think we
boys,
should.
girls, or corporal
Time is
punishment?
limited, so I think we should go straight to the difficult. So, I have three kids. Let's do a roll call of how many kids that we each have so that we can kind of set the stage for whether people will determine whether we have enough experience to even be talking about this or not. Email, go ahead.
All right, so 3 currently and 1 on the way in September.
Yo.
So I'll be a family of 5 here pretty soon.
And what are the ages?
9 and 3. They both have August birthdays, so they will be 10 and 4.
So
And
you
then
have two right now and one on the way.
yeah, so 2 right now.
Okay.
They'll be 10 and 4 in August, both their August birthdays, and then the third will be scheduled to be delivered in September.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you think our kids will listen to this one day or they'll be like not interested?
Not a chance.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
They will not know about this ever.
Podcasts like 8 tracks. Like what?
Chris, how many kids do you have?
So 2 step kids. She just turned 13, and then 8 is our middle, and then me and Kristen together have Charlie, who is turning 4 in middle July.
That's awesome. Kyle, what about you?
And we have 3 with a fourth on the way. We have a 10-year-old girl, a 7-year-old girl, a 2-year-old boy, and then another boy also due in September, like email.
Nice.
Kyle, I
Very
think
cool.
we're like a week apart, aren't we?
Yeah. Let's see. Our due date is like September 25th.
Yeah, ours is the 18th.
Okay. Yeah, dude, that's so cool.
I know.
Oh,
That's really
man.
awesome.
I love babies. That's awesome. I have three kids, 7, 3, and 1. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So, is fatherhood what you thought it would be? Like, how different is the actual day-to-day experience from what you imagined?
I mean, I really didn't know what to expect. I just observed other couples that had kids before me. I would say the earliest couple that I saw that had kids was, and you guys would relate to this, would be Jeremy and Rachel Moss. And I just saw the way they interacted with, I think, their first daughter. It's been so long since I've seen them, but I mean, I would say the communication they had with their kids and how they were able to speak with their kids almost like adults was probably the earliest way of like what I experienced, what adulthood would be, or fatherhood, I should say. So I just sort of kept that in the back of my mind. But I don't necessarily know if I had a level of expectation because you always, at least for me, you're sort of like have this advice of like, um, you can't be prepared enough to be a father, and you're never really going to know until you experience it. And for me, it's like, okay, I had to throw initially all that advice out the window and realize, like, okay, this child is different from my second child, and then it's going to be different from my third child. So, for me, I think it's just a learning process. I think some of those insights that I've learned from, I would say, adults that are a little bit much older than me, that have had teenagers and college age, you get to glean on some of that advice and sort of use that as a cheat code. But for me, I don't know if I necessarily had an expectation. I think I observed good parents and wanted to say, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of that and I'm going to implement that once my kid gets to this type of age.
Hmm, that's good. Well, you guys jump in whenever you want. My thinking, I watched my brother, and I feel like he's a good dad, so I take a lot from him. But then I'm an uncle, obviously, to his kids, and so in my naive mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be uh I'll be this kind of dad because I'm this kind of uncle. And then I realized being an uncle and being a dad are not the same thing. because because the responsibility level is quite different. So that was a big learning experience for me. Anyway, take that for what it's worth, all of you people who. Anyway, I'm
I
rambling
didn't
today.
realize before becoming a parent, I didn't realize how like how competitive it will be for our children.
Oh,
I don't know if you guys are feeling this as well, but as my older girls are getting, as they're getting older, there's lots of competition with the other kids their age at school and sports. And are we using our time wisely? Like even right now, like we're entering summer, or it's beginning of summer right now, and like, are the kids all signing up for the specific camps to get them a leg up against the competition? Are they, do we need to sign them up for math tutoring or, reading tutoring so that way they can stay on track with, everyone else? Are they, using, being productive at home? Are we limiting their screen time? We don't want to fry their little brains. I see Chris is laughing about that. I'm sure you're thinking about that too. Like, I guess before kids, I didn't realize that all of that was, going through the mind of a parent. I think I just maybe assumed that parenting was, hey, keep your kid alive, and teach them some morals, some lessons, and hopefully they make it to adulthood kind of thing. But I didn't realize that there's so many parents who are like living vicariously through their children and like training up their kids to be the next, professional athlete or the next, spelling bee champion or whatever, whatever it is. Chris, I feel like you have to say something about that.
No, I'm wrestling, not going into like youth pastor mode or youth, guy mode. I had expectations of it being like, man, all of this life wisdom, and you are a sponge, and I'm give it to you, and it's like, Dad, we don't care. Stop talking. And I was like, ah. And of course, I'm working with stepdaughters, and so there's that. I don't want to say disconnect, but there's that turbulence or whatever, that interference that's right there that I'm not technically So, and they've got a great father that's in their life. So we try to dance that line very carefully. But with Charlie, and now he's coming into his 4th year, they're starting to get where it's like, okay, I get to try again, and this is going to go a little bit differently. Where I want to take advantage of opportunities to like just teach, and I find that to be a constant like tug of war. Am I being too heavy-handed with like teaching opportunities, like, or just be in the moment, just be cool with it, and just be with the moment, or is this like, is that like, man, like with my girls, that I'm sure it irritates them so much. We're driving to band practice or whatever, and have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? What do you think about this? And they're just like rolling their eyes at me. So a little part of me dies every time I see their face change. Like, okay, well, we'll try again next time. It requires a lot of intentionality. That's something that caught me off guard. That time will just get away from you, and days become months. And it's like, oh snap! Okay, that happened so fast, and it's easy to get caught up in, just like you were talking, Kyle, just the busyness of it, getting them to this, getting them to that, dropping off there. How are we doing with this? Da, 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 da. And you can look up and be just like, where did that month go? Where did that semester go? So finding those times that you can, when the machine is a little bit slower, quieter, and taking advantage of them.
It's like some philosopher, I think, said something like, the point of a melody is not its conclusion. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like whoever said that, like to your point, you want to prepare them for this kind of concluding send off and be responsible adults, but also like you don't want to get lost in the day to day of everything. But it is busy. Like I was in a meeting before this and I was watching my baby. And so it's like people say, well, you can't multitask, but like sometimes you have to multitask. So that sounds good to say, yeah, you can't multitask, but like, well, you have to sometimes. So, and then you feel like your attention, then you can feel like you're not doing a good job at either thing because your attention is split. And I'm trying to figure that out now, to be honest with you, is how to be present with the kids, but also get other things that need to get done and prioritizing. And um, I don't know. I'm constantly trying to learn that. Have you guys discovered any secret to prioritizing um, with regard to like work, but also spending time with the kids?
Not something I'm doing successfully. So I don't want to say like, watch me as I'm doing it great. Andy Stanley wrote a long time ago a book called Choosing to Cheat. And he's prioritizing the fact that as believers, we're called first to our families, and work will constantly want every other moment, whatever your job is, him coming as a pastor and author and things like that, that there's always going to be a demand for your time from your professional side. But taking on from that story in Daniel with the 3 Israelite boys going to the Babylonian officer saying, hey, let us try it our way. And if it doesn't work, then, whatever. But if it does work, we believe that we're going to be the best employees, the best students that you've got. And so they were choosing to cheat toward the ways of the Lord. And it ended up being a huge boon for them, and set them up really well. And so Stanley pulls from that story that, okay, we only have so many hours. We're going to have to, somebody's going to get cheated. Somebody's going to get robbed. Let it be work and not family, and let the Lord honor that decision, and somehow multiply the effects of what hours you do give to your job. And that is countercultural. That is really hard to do. And it's hard sometimes to even justify doing that, because it does feel like you're, truly robbing somebody. But if you have to pick someone, let the tiebreaker be your family. And that's, like I said, that's so difficult to do, but I try to live by that as much as I can.
That's good. What about you, Emil?
I don't know if I could think of a specific example. I don't know. I'm entering into this new world where it's like now I'm gonna have 3 kids. So I feel like this question is more close to like you, Kyle, and Chris and Chad. It's like what
Welcome.
does that look like? I mean, with 2, your time's limited, but then 3 and then 4, you're like, oh my gosh, how do I do this?
But your older kids will help out with the younger one.
Which
That's
has been very helpful with my son because that age gap right now, my daughter and son are 6 years apart. So like we were kind of like trying to figure out like, is he going to be helpful when Lily is born? Like, what is this going to look like? And to tell you the truth, like he's been 100% helpful and super protective of his sister.
Yeah.
So I think sort of that culture that's sort of been organic would I think is going to parlay into our third child also. But to answer your question about time, we try to be as intentional as possible. It's not perfect, but like in the mornings, because they're early risers, like 6:30, 7. Sometimes Lon would get up as early as 5:30 because what he does is he just loves to wake up and read books. It's just one of his things that he does.
Oh,
So
wow.
early on, like when he was 4 or 5, he would get up as early as sometimes 6 or 6:30 and run straight into our room. And we're like, dude, we are still sleeping. So this would happen for like 2 or 3 weeks straight. So finally, this must have been the Holy Spirit, but I was like, man, he loves to read so much. How about we just give? So he has like this chest of library books in his room. So we said, hey, buddy, don't come out of your room until 7:30 to come wake us up. But between whenever you wake up till 7:30, grab a book and read. So that's what he does now. He's been doing it ever since he's 5. So whenever he wakes up early, instead of running over to our room unless there's an emergency, he will literally read a book. So that's been helpful because whenever he wakes up in the morning, he has more of a mellow attitude to start the day, and he eats breakfast, and then we get the day started. And then naturally, I think just me talking this through with you, that's also helped our daughter as well. Even though she technically can't read now at 3 and recognize words, she's sort of like seeing her brother read and she'll sit down for 30 minutes and they'll read before they get rambunctious around the house. So that's helped us throughout the morning because my wife needs coffee in the morning to get up. I'm not a coffee drinker. So that really, really helps. And then after that, then the day just goes haywire. But I think that to answer your question, then from intentionality, that's probably been the biggest thing that's helped so far. Um, Kyle, I think I have to learn from you with your daughter because she's a few months older than Lion, but it's like once they start getting activities and stuff like that, like the schedule's haywire. So how does that work?
Well, also, like what you said is so good because reframing it, like with our daughter, if she wants to stay up later, sometimes I'll be like, listen, you can stay up as late as you want as long as you're in your room reading. Like, that's okay with me. So reframing, or like yesterday, I was trying to get them to clean their room, and I thought, hey, you can uh play music while you're cleaning your room. And it's like sometimes something that's like not a big deal to us, if you frame it a certain way. She was so excited to get to play music on the Alexa while she was cleaning. And actually her favorite one of her favorite songs is Michael Jackson was the song. I can't I'm blanking on it, but yeah, she was she's like Alexa, play. I can't. Man, I've had 2 cups of coffee this morning and my brain is like fried. Anyway, go ahead, Kyle.
No, I mean, I love that email sharing about what you do with Line in the mornings because that's I think that's like a lot of our job, our role as the fathers, in the house is to look at what the precedent, like what we want the precedent to be, and then logistically, and obviously our wives help us with this, but like logistically figuring out how to make it work. And like a problem of like Lion waking up early and waking up, you and your wife, you and Allison emailed like, okay, how do we solve this? Okay, he likes to read. Hey, you got to read these books. You can't come out until 7:30. That I love that. And uh and I think that's like a lot of our job is like setting that into place. Like spiritually for our family, I'd like us to like start praying together more as a family, and we just don't really do it. Like before bed, we'll say a quick little prayer. But I'm actually reading that book, Chad, that you recommended, Habits for the Household.
It's so
And
good. I need to reread that.
yeah, it's a really really good book, and I'm only maybe like halfway through it or so, but just looking at the rhythms of home life and family life, and then trying to just pepper in little disciplines that will point your kids and your family towards the Lord. I just think that's so good. And email, that's a great example of what you were sharing there. But like for us, yeah, I'd like us to, as a family, be praying together more, reading scripture more together, um, even like eating dinner together. I don't know if you guys do this, but like we, especially during the summertime, like we are so quick to have dinner and just like everyone just kind of eat wherever the food is, like not actually sitting down at a table and like having a family meal, but just like, okay, the TV's on, we're watching a movie or something, and the kids are eating, and whatever. It's just kind of chaotic. But in the book he was talking about how important it is just to sit down around the table and have like a family, a family conversation, and talk about each other's days, and share with each other, and that just builds such strong bonds, family bonds that will last for a long time. And so yeah, I mean, it's man, it's work. It's work and discipline, doing all of this, but I think it will be worth it.
Hey, so I
Some
take kids to summer camp, every year, and the number is actually on the rise. When I ask the question on our first meal there at camp, we sit family style, so round tables of like 10 or so. And I asked them at the beginning of that first meal, how often in an average week do you sit at a family meal, like with your family? And that number is getting lower and lower. Like,
Wow.
oh, never.
Wow.
It's Chick-fil-A in the car on something. I just grab something out of the pantry and go eat in my room. And so like what we're talking about might feel like not that big of a deal, but to your point, Kyle, I think it's really important to instill those kinds of values, even if we don't know how to pinpoint what that value is. There's something human and spiritual and beautiful about the family sitting together, breaking bread, serving one another at the table, engaging in conversation. Whether or not it's spiritual, I think it's still just practical and good for human existence, and not to be so isolated and so like just thinking about how even food is just going to function within my system or my timeline or whatever. But no, we need to pause all that stuff, and we need to come together and engage one another in our own home. It's scary how rare that is, at least with the kids that I'm working with.
Yeah. That's so good. I think you're spot on with like the rhythms and the habits of daily life. We had last semester in school, we had to read this book called Desiring the Kingdom. And he was talking a lot about forming our affections. He says basically you're going to be loving something, and the things that you physically do every day affect your they direct your desires. And so he did this whole, I don't know if it was a whole chapter, but he went on this lengthy exposition of how liturgical going to the mall is. And he like analogized kind of this spiritual aspect of going to the mall. And he said, we think so much about worldview, but really when it's we are embodied creatures, and so much doesn't happen first in our minds, it happens in what we are physically habitually doing every day. So to your point, Chris, sometimes we don't know what's going on, but we know, hey, sitting together and eating together, there's formation of desire happening there. So how are we forming our kids to desire the right things? And so much of it is like passive, like what we control right now, at least with my kids. I do control like what music they listen to. So I try to be intentional about that. Like I try to give them a taste of whatever, Michael Jackson or something like that. But then we are playing worship music, or I am introducing them to classical music. Or I love showing, Penelope old episodes of Leave It to Beaver or something like that. Like even like natural, just in the course of the day, we have control over certain things. And I'm like you, Chris, because sometimes I want to like make it like a teaching moment, but just doing it without necessarily articulating that it is a teaching moment, I have found sometimes uh works better. But you know, that could be the case on a Tuesday and it changes on a Thursday. But yeah.
Okay, question. Fatherhood at 40. Okay, when our fathers were, our parents were rocking with us, and we were doing the road trip, or we were doing just really kind of anything. What age did you guys get? Whether it was a CD Walkman, like a Sony Walkman, or like a personal cassette player. How old were you when you got one?
Mm.
That's a good question.
I was probably th 12 maybe.
Yeah, I think I was like sixth grade, maybe
Yeah,
sixth, seventh grade.
When did those come out? CD, like a CD player, like the
the
when,
personal CD player.
yeah. What year did those come out? Like, was it late 90s or early 2000s? I mean, like what?
Probably,
I
yeah.
know.
Like,
Before that, right?
I mean, because you could get a cassette player, I think late '80s. But okay, so here's where I'm going with this question: uh, what's on the market now like that? Because you can get your kid, like we got our girls a CD, like a little personal CD player, but then there was the problem of like you need CDs, and my catalog of CDs is nothing that the girls want to listen to. So I have this player, and I have these CDs, but there's nothing attractive in my CD wallet. And if you still have your CD wallet, and we're like, okay, do we buy CDs? How does this work? So the next logical jump is, well, at least for us, it was iPod. But again, that's arcane. Like, no, there's no iPod anymore. We're trying to prevent iPhone. We're trying to, like, let's take baby steps to get to iPhone, but the market has just moved. Like, it's either nothing or here's the entire world on this device. And it's like, I just want a music player for the car when we can't decide on what to listen to, and they want to just kind of go into their own headspace, which I think, yeah, around this age that we're talking about is an okay time to do that. I don't want to start doing that too early, but preteen, I think, is right.
I
So we
I,
have
I
we
don't
have
know.
like Spotify. I mean, like we have Spotify, and then the girls will create their own like playlists on my Spotify. But
So you're just sharing
it-
your phone, like, because that's just a
yeah,
test.
and that's the problem is that if they're listening to their Spotify playlist, that means that they have to have my phone, and so then that means I don't have my phone. You know, so that's kind of
Yeah.
right? Because I'm just as addicted to my phone as I'm scared of them being addicted to it. So yeah, Chris, I'm kind of in the same boat where it's like it's that time, for my 10-year-old to have her own music and her own like playlist that she listens to and that she can kind of zone out to, or you know, yeah, at the end of the day, go to her room and put on her music like we used to do, but I don't really know what to give her for that.
A record player.
Right. Yeah. You can probably get records easier than you can get CDs now.
Well, and then all their friends have something. So it's like you can have rules. It's kind of like I was going to ask you. So our family rule is pretty much going to be no sleepovers. And I'm not going to put that on anybody else, but that's going to be our family rule. I mean, like with grandma or something, but with other kids. Well, I did sleepovers, but that's going to be kind of our family thing. But if other people don't have your same rule, I mean, I'm not, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but it's like, not everybody's on the same page with whatever rule, and some rules aren't right or wrong. It's just a personal family rule, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. How are you guys, are you experiencing that yet?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we don't have that rule, but we have a close Macy's. One of Macy's close friends does, and we've invited. Hey, Macy's had a birthday party just recently, and it's going to be a sleepover. And like, oh well, we can come for a couple hours, but we're going to come pick her up. 11 midnight, something like that. Okay. What we've found is that we want to foster that friendship. Like, that's one of the friendships that we really want Macy to have. So it's like, okay, well, we just have to be, again, going back to it, real intentional about where we can find time together my family's about to head to the ranch. My father-in-law has a ranch, and they're going to go, but they pushed back their departure time because Macy got invited by this friend for a little hangout time. We're like, well, okay, it may not necessarily be the way that we would have wanted, but this is something we valued, so we're just going to have to carve out some time and make time for that. Yeah, to each his own on that. So it just depends on the individual family and their style. And as long as, I guess as long as you and Angela are willing to know the tension that's there and recognize the tension, and then like move things around where you are within your comfort zone to foster those friendships. Because there's some, yes, there's thorns on the rose, but there's some rosy moments that happen with sleepovers and things like that. And so, like, for instance, this particular friend, they'll have to cross this bridge when they really get to it themselves as a family. But I invited them to come on the middle school camp trip that I'm leading for wildlife, and they're like, "Ah, no sleepovers." I was like, "Really? Even for like summer camp?" So like, you guys, that this particular family, y'all have made the decision that your child is 13 is not going to overnight camp. Like, for me, that like opens up a whole new can of worms of questions and honestly concerns. But that's their prerogative as parents of that home. So,
yeah, we've tried to. Yeah, that was good, Chris. We're kind of working through it ourselves. Like both my daughters want sleepovers all the time, especially now that it's summer. They're constantly asking, "Oh, can we have, can I go do a sleepover? Can I do a sleepover?" And so we've done a few, and over the last couple of years, and then they've turned out fine. I mean, like maybe some like practical problems, like them staying up too late and then being exhausted the next day. I don't think anything like majorly scarring happened, but it is kind of like playing with fire, especially when you send your kid from your home into another kid's home, and maybe you know that family, maybe you don't know their family very well. You don't know what's going to happen. What we're trying to do is be very particular about who we're doing a sleepover with, and choosing families that we're familiar with and that we know the parents pretty well. And then also we've been trying to do it more in our house as opposed to sending our kids to someone else's house, just because we trust you know we know what's happening in our house, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like what Chris said, it can be a really cool moment, a cool experience for our kids to have a sleepover with a friend, and stay up a little bit late watching a movie, and then just also have that friend see how our family operates. And that could be something that friend is not used to, and they might
Yeah.
um, be exposed to something in a positive way that they wouldn't have been otherwise. So yeah, that's a tough question, and we kind of we're struggling through, trying to find an answer to it, ourselves. But email, what are you guys doing about that? Are y'all doing sleepovers?
We're currently not at the moment. Lions brought it up a few times, but we've sort of been really intentional on helping him understand why we don't do sleepers at this age. Um, and maybe that will change as you get older, but we don't know. In this current season, we've said, hey, these are the rules and parameters, buddy. We're along the same lines of with Chris, like you were saying, like, hey, you can go hang out with your buddies till X amount of time. At that point, we'll come get you, or we'll hang out with the family, so on and so forth. But at this particular season, no sleepovers. But then as we were wrestling this conversation with him, it was also self-reflecting for me, because I was thinking, did I ever have a sleepover? So then I was asking my brother this, and then I was asking his wife, and I was like, I had to sit down about it. I was like, you know what? The closest thing to a sleepover for me was a lock-in, a church lock-in. Like, I don't remember sleeping over at a friend's house. I really don't. And then it made me think, okay, well, lock-ins, generally speaking, you have sponsors, they're pretty protective. Kids are going to be up 12 plus 13 hours anyway. None of them really sleeping until like 4 a.m. And then you have to get out 4 hours later when they get picked up. So, like, from that aspect, I think, like, for us, if, and I don't know if that's still relevant right now with churches, if they still do lock ins or not.
Just did one.
Say what?
That I just did one last weekend. Yeah.
Okay. So that's, at least for right now, that's something that we feel comfortable with because Allison and also myself, we've had great experiences with that. And from a church context, um, I think we feel pretty comfortable as long as there's safeguards there. Um, but yeah, like in the season of sleepovers right now, it's not something we're entertaining right now, as long as he understands why.
And how old is he again?
9.
9. Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I think, just speaking from experience and also seeing like the type of kids my son hangs around with, I think I would say I think sometimes as parents, because we get so busy, we don't give enough credit to how smart our kids are.
Hmm.
Like, if you really can sit down and have an adult conversation with them, they will understand.
Yeah.
And if they have other questions, they may ask in the moment, or they come back 5 minutes later and say, "Hey, why did you ask that?" And most of the time, they're like, "Oh, okay, I understand. Go off and play."
Hmm.
But I think early on for us is like not complicating the conversation with Lion. And now, like Lily seeing that, like sometimes she'll have questions even at 3, where it's just like, okay, where did that come from? But understanding, like, okay, if we can just sort of like treat them as adults, now that obviously there's some topics that are way past them, but if they approach us with certain things, helping them understand, like, how can we simplify this conversation in such a way that they can understand it at their age. So I think that's one of the things we've tried to navigate with the whole sleepover conversation.
Hmm. That's good. Well, and it's not just sleepovers. I guess my point is anything where your family rule might conflict with another family's rule and dealing with that tension. Some kid has an iPhone, you're not letting your kid have an iPhone. Like, um, it's it's easy to have a plan, but then when you're faced with that tension, um, I don't know. It's a learning experience. That's what's interesting about being a parent for me is like, you can read a book, you can listen to this, whatever, you can learn something and feel like you have like a good handle on things, and then everything changes, a month later or something like that. And so it's this constant, I guess as we conclude, because Kyle and I do have to go pick up our kids.
Speaking of children.
Let
Yeah. I love how God uses everything. Like, fatherhood is not just um a single thing. In other words, God is working something in us through us fathering our kids, and he's working something in them, and just kind of this synergy. And so I'm so thankful for y'all. I mean, you guys, we've been friends, you know, for a long time. And so I'm thankful to watch you guys, and how you are being good fathers and intentional fathers and be there for your families. And I think it's awesome. And I think, people are watching that. And so it's a sobering thing to me. Like, it matters what we do every day. I know that's obvious, but people are watching you that will never comment to you that they're watching you, and seeing what you're doing. And it's scary because our kids are watching us every day too. Kind of like Kyle said with his phone. It's like, I'll get mad at my kids for watching too much TV or whatever, and I'm like, I've got my laptop in front of me and my phone in my hand while the laptop's on and watching
Yep.
TV. It's like, do I really need 3 screens on right now? Like, I don't know. And then I'm like, you guys are watching too much TV. Like, turn Bluey down. But
Along
anyway,
those lines, Chad. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna. Don't forget what we are gonna say. But as we wrap up, can you guys leave us with one word of encouragement to maybe dads that are listening, or soon to be dads? Um, keep going, stay strong, find community. I think that's one of the biggest things that I would say is it's good to read a book, it's good to listen to a teaching, whatever. But at the end of the day, find some good guys who have, um, similar outlook on parenting as you, and feed off of each other's strength and encourage each other, because there's nothing like that community and encouragement. Anyway, I'm rambling. Go ahead, email.
I would have to agree with what you're saying along the lines of community. Um, I think that's very, very, very important. And I think this may go back to the conversation we had at Chad's birthday party, but um, like we've known each other 10, 15 plus years. I mean, we've been roommates before. Chad, we know each other. Chris, I've been in 20 plus years now, or is it less than that?
Yeah, we've all known each other for over 20 years,
Dude,
guys.
yeah, I'd like to correct, not 10 to 15. We're 20 plus, brother.
We met each other
This
when
is a
we were
long-term
2.
relationship, let me tell you.
But obviously, our lives have navigated in so many different directions and seasons. But I would have to 100% piggyback on what you said, Chad, along the lines of community. I think what happens is, and we're just coming off a vacation now, so like I'm seeing this now in a different light. But as you get older, your friend group gets smaller, and I don't know if that's intentional or not. But what I've noticed coming off of this vacation, and it's a long answer, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we went to 4 different states within 2 weeks, and the reason why is because the last state we went to, on my wife's side of the family for this trip, we met her 97-year-old grandma. Super sharp, remembers every single detail, knows all of her grandkids by name, ages. It's incredible. But the reason I bring this up is because at 97, she just had her last sibling pass away about 8 days ago, and she has nobody left in her life. Like nobody left her in life. So, like in some ways, it's depressing, but it's also like rewarding because she sees all of her kids and grandkids in front of her. So it's really cool to see. But like as you get older, you start to notice that like the friends that you have around you, if you're not intentional about that, it can just fall apart.
Yeah.
And in some regards, like due to health or relationships or whatever that may be. But what I'm circling around this is like the value of community is so important because you need that in those times where it's just like, okay, like, dude, Chad, I don't know what to do. Help me talk through this. Kyle, I don't know what to do. Help me talk through this. And I think if you don't have that community, it can really, really wreck on your marriage and your kids.
Mm.
And I think that community is going to be more valuable right now as we like navigate through this like age of AI. We're going to be constantly on our screens. We're going to be constantly, Chris, to your point, like not having dinner at the table, and like we need to have those like emotional, interactional conversations with people because like that's really what brings the value of what we do. And I just think as we get older, just so much time, so much things that you're consumed about. It's really hard to like be intentional with those that you care about.
That's good. Well, we got to wrap up. And that was good. And I'm determined to be intentional, even if it means recording a podcast with you guys. So,
Just our excuse to get together.
yeah. Hey, Kyle's downstairs at my house right now.
I am downstairs in your
So,
Like-
this is fun.
Morphs into like an actual, we intentionally get together.
Hey, let's do it.
I'm down.
But it's got to be somewhere ridiculous.
Like, what would that be?
I don't know. Let's go to Six Flags.
Oh, I thought you meant like Las Vegas or something like that. Yeah.
Don't miss
Hey,
what God is doing in your life, teaching you from the perspective of being a father now. That's been my biggest thing. A quick parting shot has been like, oh gosh, I'm understanding the heart of God in some new ways, being a father than before I had kids, and concepts of grace and mercy and forgiveness and da 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 da. It's like, oh, I see you differently. Worship has changed for me since being a father. So I would encourage somebody out there, don't miss what God's doing in your heart as you're trying to work on your own kids and raise them up. This has been fun, man.
hey, I love you guys. This has been great. Until next time.
At Six Flags.
Or Milwaukee. How about Milwaukee? You guys want to go there?
Milwaukee.
Boise, Idaho.
Sign us off.